Hello and welcome to another edition of Unpluggered, episode 6. Back talking all things St Kilda. Unfortunately, the home and away season comes to an end with back-to-back losses, and one of, in fairness, our poorest losses of the season, it must be said. We'll pull that apart. We'll also be joined by former coach of the Saints, who got us into 3 consecutive finals campaigns, including back-to-back preliminary finals in Grant Thomas. He'll jump on a little bit later on. Darren Parkin is my name, Nick Splitter and Aaron McGrath with me every week. Lifelong Saints fans via through Saintsational or the old Saints chat, or just heading along to Waverley Park in the 90s along the way as well. And we'd love to hear from you throughout the course of each week, particularly now as we get towards the silly season. You can contact us unplugged@gmail.com, facebook.com/unplugged, @unplugged on Twitter, or Unplugged Podcast on Instagram, taking all of your feedback. And boys, we welcome you. Aaron, first of all, you are a game that midway through the third quarter showed a bit of promise, which we'll review later, but that was a pretty nasty one in the end.
Yeah, I mean, even though we were reasonably close, it sort of did feel a bit more than what it was a lot of the time, though. I think we had plenty of the shots at the goal, but once again, that goal-kicking accuracy that really, really let us down, but it just didn't feel like we were going to run over them at any point.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Nick, your assessment initially?
It was a bit of a depressing afternoon way to finish the season, I thought. But I was really hoping that we'd come out all guns blazing and really finish the season strongly. But it wasn't to be. Obviously, Sydney had a bit more to play for in farewelling a couple of their greats and obviously Buddy's 300th. And they all kind of contributed to that victory for them.
Unfortunately, we appeared to be guests at the Sydney party more than anything. We often do a bit of reminiscing before we get into our review, and it is the silly season. We've been linked to 3/4 of the AFL in trade discussions, and we'll pull apart fact from fiction a little bit later on. But best or worst trades, or trades that got you the most excited? H, yours first?
Well, not really the one I'm going to look at the moment. The most obvious is going to be Gresham and Carlisle for basically pick 5 just the other year. But going back to where it all set up, everything through that 09-10 period, getting Schneider, Dempster, King and Charlie Gardner, he wasn't there for too long, for basically nothing.
Yeah.
3 of them set up what was a dominant period.
They played in 5 grand finals between them for us.
Yeah.
Or 6 actually.
Yeah, and basically paid nothing for them.
Yeah, that's right. Schneider played in all 3. Dempster played in all 3. King played in just the 09 grand final. So we got...
And Gardner played some pretty good football while he was with us.
Yeah, particularly in that 08 year,
Yeah.
Dempster, the famous steak knives in that deal.
That's right. Absolutely. He was the afterthought.
Went on to be a pretty good player.
He certainly did. Nick, what was yours?
Yeah, I'm going to go back a little bit further to a period that really set up, I guess, that period of success for us, and that's the 2000-2001 trade period where we brought in a couple of really good players, and the one that I really liked was Aaron Hamill, coming in from Carlton. Gave up pick 4 in the draft, which we'd earlier received for Daryl Wakeland from Port Adelaide, and Sam Cranage, who didn't go on to do too much at Carlton, and we got a guy who was really influential in building our group and motivating guys like Rewalt and BJ and Cozzy and Dal to be leaders of a group.
And remains at the club now, Aaron Hamill, as coach of Sandy, of course. Mine was that same trade period. I'm not even sure exactly what the deal was for offhand, but Fraser Garrick came to the club at the same time. And I remember as a kid, there was a lot of excitement around St Kilda at the time, and that one caught me by surprise because Malcolm Blight had just been appointed. Aaron Hamill had been all of the talk. That was the prime target and the major move of the off-season. But I remember there was a news report where a lot of the St Kilda guys had come back from the Gold Coast where they'd wined and dined Malcolm Blight and got his signature. And Fraser Garrick, who wasn't yet signed by the club, had met them at the airport because he went to the airport just to see what was going on. And I remember the news article just said at the end, Fraser Garrick met the boys at the airport and he'll be a Saint next year. And I was thinking, that's a pretty cool get. Not realising that he'd end up being a full forward and win 2 Colemans and finish runner-up in the best and fairest as a full back because he played as a sort of a half-forward flank roaming player for West Coast. So that was exciting to get Rewalt and Cozzy in the draft, get Hamill, Garrick, Brett Voss,
Stephen
Lawrence, Craig Callaghan, the ill-fated Matthew Capuano at that time, and I think Gale from Fremantle, Mark Gale, might have been his name.
Yep.
All at the same time. So, and Robert Powell.
Tony
Delaney, I think. Robert Powell from Richmond, I think, came across. So with some mixed success. So
got that trade. It was actually a pretty win-win trade for both teams. We got Fraser, as you said, 145 games for us, a couple of Coleman medals. West Coast got David Sirakowski, who was a decent player.
Yeah.
Only played 10 games for them, but as part of that trade, they got pick 18.
Mm-hmm.
Want to have a guess who they picked with pick 18?
Someone good, I'm guessing.
I got a feeling it might have been Kerr or something.
Yeah, good
Yeah,
guess.
there you
Daniel
go.
Kerr. It was a pretty good player in his own right.
He was.
220-odd games for West Coast and was part of a pretty good midfield.
I think we both win, that's for sure. Obviously, that intro music you heard at the start, Lloyd Spiegel, providing that for us again. You can check out his work, lloydspiegel.com, for all of that other stuff as well. But we'll get into our Saints footy review.
Rose, but Long stayed down. Read it well. He wants it back here, and he'll get the handball as well. Ben Long, time to straighten up. Tries to bend it back, and he's done so. That's the class this guy has off half back. And they're right back in at St Kilda, out of nowhere.
I thought we really squandered our opportunities in the second. When it's 5-9 to 6-3, we've had 5 more scoring shots, and we don't put any scoreboard pressure on to be 3 or 4 goals up and have some breathing space. But whether it was the first quarter or the last quarter, our skill level is not at the level that's needed, and that's something that's going to have to change whether I'm the coach or not, because if we don't improve in that space, players can't play here, and we have to get players that can develop and improve in that space, or we have to recruit them to come into our footy club. And today I thought we left the season with just a little sour taste in our mouth because of the way we used the footy, and then probably the last 11 minutes of the game sort of was a bit of showtime for Sydney.
And they were one of the rare highlights from a pretty miserable day at the office, and Brett Ratton quite rightly lamenting some really ordinary foot skills which have plagued us for a while. Unfortunately, the last month has been a little bit like what the start of the season was and the last couple of years in terms of slaughtering inside 50s and horrendous use of the footy. But Sydney 17-7, 109, St Kilda 8-16, 64. After being 5 goals down in the first quarter. At one stage we led 6-12 to 7-3 in the third quarter, and that was the chance when we just kept peppering. I think there was a stretch in the game where we kicked 5 goals 7 to 1 goal 2 or something like that, and that's where we needed to take full toll. But it wasn't to be. There were some good contributors, but I guess as is so often the case, probably not many standouts. Nick, what did you make of that? Because in the blink of an eye, it was gone. Halfway through the third quarter, we're half a sniff, and 5 minutes later, we were gone.
Yeah, I thought around half-time into the third quarter, I thought we really had a chance to run over the top of them. I thought we were going to be the fitter team. They were playing a couple of older guys, some guys who were probably underdone.
And they had some sore bodies too.
And some sore bodies. But I really thought that we'd run over the top of them in the last quarter, even though we hadn't really been in it as much as we could have earlier. But we were close. We took the lead at times and had some momentum at times, but really disappointing to kind of let go the way we did and let it turn out the way it did. Obviously, you kick 8 goals, 16, you're not going to win too many games of footy, especially when the other team just can't seem to miss.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's something that, as Rats said after the game, it's something that really has to improve. And if guys can't do what they're meant to do, then maybe they shouldn't be playing AFL footy and maybe not at our club.
Yeah, I didn't quite have the same outlook for what was happening during the game. It sort of felt like one of those games where we might keep touch with them for a while, but it had that feeling that it was going to be their day. Their players like Kennedy and Buddy and them they were just doing everything right. Josh Kennedy was unstoppable. I was saying before, 32 disposals, and he only played 78% of the game. Couldn't do anything against him. Buddy, 300th. You're either going to go, he's either going to have an absolute stinker, or, as he's done before in the games like his 200th, dominate us.
Also against us, and his 100th against us as well.
Yep.
Has a pretty good record against us.
But yeah, just their key players that they've had over the years just stood up. They wanted to send their mates out the right way. That's all they did. They wanted to win.
I mean, you can't complain too much about not winning a game when you're clearly the second best team on the field. And we were, even when we were close, we were clearly the second best. And Sydney were just better. They were cleaner, they were faster, they were harder. They did everything better than we did. But yeah, like I said, I was just really disappointed that we couldn't use our fitness and our youth to our advantage towards the end of the game.
It's often the story of us, though, where we look like, they're having a dip, but it looks so, for some reason, it looks like we're playing a different game, and it's so much harder for us sometimes, where we'll win possession of the football and things that look relatively straightforward. At times when it's not working, when it's working, it looks great, obviously, but it can look so cumbersome where it's, how are we going to get the ball over the top there? Oh, we just sort of scrounged it forward. But even little things like in the second quarter when just things you can't miss. Jack Loney had it about 40 metres out and Hanbury was running into an open goal and all he had to do was hit him 15 metres away with a chip pass and kicked it over his head and just little stuff like that. And it can be frustrating to watch. I mean, you see it when they break through, like the Melbourne and the Bulldogs game, but there were times in that game where you were just like, it's not supposed to be this difficult to transition the footy. I don't think I've seen too many sides, as frustrating as it sounds, where you'll be at the ground and you'll see them win the ball at centre half forward or in the middle. You'll look inside 50, you'll have 5 players there and you don't score. And it's impossible to fathom how you don't score in those circumstances, but it happens all the time.
Yeah. And while we're on frustrating things about the footy and especially about this weekend, H, I wanted to raise something that we mentioned. We watched the game on Saturday afternoon together and it was funny hearing the fans kind of around us, some common refrains, which I think are normal for, historically as footy fans and at the footy, but the old just kick it, just kick it. I think,
and 2 seconds later we do win and we lost it.
Yeah, look, it's a good sentiment. Obviously, we want to move the ball quickly. We want to get it out of congestion and kick it to our advantage. But players are actually coached not to just kick it.
Yeah.
And things like man up Saints. They're coached not to man up. They're coached to defend in zones and defend parts of the ground specifically rather than specific men at times. Hearing the man up. Just kick it long, kick it, Saints. When clearly that's not the game plan, it was frustrating. It's one of
players 70 metres out, and we've got no one in the 50.
Yeah, that's right. And then someone does kick it under pressure, and
Straight
it just drops in the
straight
lap
to
of
Sydney.
an opposition defender or midfielder, and it's just really frustrating. One of the things that really grinds my gears at the footy at the moment.
Yeah, there are quite a few of those, and there are a few players that were frustrating. I guess without sounding harsh, because I think it's a hard one to assess on Brett Ratten, but is there any danger that was, I guess, a mortal blow in the sense that they were not as competitive as they needed to be? I mean, I was discussing it with a couple of other Saints fans, and Michael Egan is one that we all know quite well. On Twitter, I was talking to him about it, and the first 2 games under Brett Ratten, there was a clear and obvious change. All keen to ask Grant Thomas about that as well, but in the last 4 weeks, it seemed to be a little bit more of a back to the way they've been getting beaten earlier in the year. Is it unrealistic to suggest that should have changed more in the space of 6 weeks, or is Brett Ratten not expected in a short space of time to be able to turn that around so quickly?
Unless you change your list a lot, I don't think it really does.
Yeah, I agree. I just hope they do.
I think there were still signs that we were playing differently. I mean, we got to keep in mind that for a start, this is round 23. The guys literally had nothing to play for except potentially trying to keep a place on the list, which is, big enough in its own. But in terms of, team success, there was nothing really to gain by winning the match. And I still think that we are playing more direct. We're running the ball. We're moving the ball a bit quicker and taking a few more chances through the middle than we were previously. Doesn't always come off. And as you kind of mentioned, the list hasn't changed from previous under Richo. And some of the skills just aren't up to scratch. And when you're trying to move the ball quickly and you're trying to, hit up targets further up the field and run through the middle and trying to use some pace and dash, ultimately you need players who can do that. And we don't have a list that's built for that at the moment. Our list is built for patience. Let's move the ball patiently and slowly. Let's hit targets short. We can move wide, play down the wings, and try and hit someone up on the flank. And move the ball kind of slowly into our offensive zone. But what Rats, I think, has tried to do, and what I've noticed is a lot more, dash through the middle, leaving caution to the wind, I guess, in some cases. And we've seen it with guys like Nick Hind on occasion, picking the ball up in the middle of the ground and running, using his power and his burst to our advantage and kicking some goals. But we don't have a list that's built to do that. And I think, that'll be a really clear focus for us moving into trade and draft period to figure out the best players to utilise that game plan if it is Ratten that ends up getting the job, and whoever that is will have, I think, have some input into what those players and what those moves look like.
Yeah, and I think as you talk about the speed with Hind on the wing and that sort of thing, and we kind of looking towards who's possibly going to be coming into the team, because that's probably what we're kind of focused on getting, a bit more pace, a bit more skilled ball use. We possibly do look at moving the ball quicker next year.
Yeah, I think we just need to be more efficient. And that's just all around
the
ground.
Hit those easy targets that we should hit.
And just to answer the original question, I don't think that the last 2 or 3 weeks should have too much of an impact on Ratton's hopes of getting the job. And I still think he's the front runner. I still think he has the advantage over anybody else. Obviously, we're not, we're not privy to the presentations that are being put to the club and the interviews and all that sort of stuff. But I don't think Rats has done too much wrong in the last couple of weeks.
Now, there's a lot of players we can analyse, but we'll do that perhaps as part of a review next week in regards to the list and whether they'll survive or what the future might hold. Some of those guys that are fringe-ish, like Nunes and Akers and Sinclair and Loney and all of those sorts of players. But the 3, 2 and 1, we'll stockpile some of the Player of the Year votes and compile this over the course of a season. But coming into this, Jack Steele 14, Sebros 13, Hanbury 9, Marshall 8. Your main contenders, your 3, 2 and 1 first, H?
It was a very, very difficult one to do this week.
It was,
Wasn't, as we say, no standouts really. Basically, I've had to give it 3 to Hanbury. Consistent. That's all he has been. Is 28 touches, 12 contested possessions. He did what he's there to do. Probably did the best job for what the jobs are given to each player.
Yeah.
Luke Dunstan 2, 15 contested possessions, did the same, got in there, got the ball for us, and yeah, used it okay, but he was one of the ones that sort of gave it up when trying to move the ball too quick down the ground, and we didn't really have anyone there. That was his only real downs on the day, and 1 to Sebros. Again, another effort. Nothing out of the ordinary, but did his job that he needed to do.
Nick?
Yeah, same. I think Hanbury was our clear best out of a disappointing group. As you said, he had a fair bit of the ball, 5 tackles, 7 inside 50s and 7 clearances. Did pretty much everything he could have done. 2 to Jack Steele, I thought he was pretty good as well. 27 touches and 7 tackles, did his job. Unfortunately, the pack mentality of the Sydney midfield took over at times, and there was not much he could do about it. The 1 was really difficult. I had Dunstan in that group for the 1. If he'd kicked 1 or 2 of the shots that he had, probably would have snuck in. But I went Josh Bruce for the 1. Kicked 2 goals, 1, had 7 score involvements, 5 marks, up the wing and inside 50, and just worked really hard, just worked his butt off all day.
Got the same players as H, but a slightly different order. I gave 3 votes to Luke Dunstan. I thought his consistency over the course of the game. 2 votes to Seb Ross, kicked a couple of goals. He's certainly been probably more offensive in the last 6 weeks under Brett Ratton. He's one guy that I think's had a better back end of the year under the new coach. And 1 vote to Dan Hanbury, 28 possessions, and was lively. Should have kicked a goal, as we said. He got burnt running into an open goal at one point and missed another chance as well. But his 5 weeks have been what you would have hoped from him. He's been getting mid-20s and pushing forward and been really creative. So if he can get a pre-season under his belt, you'd love to have him 20 times next year. We are going to turn our attention to our feature interview of the week, and this time it is former St Kilda coach Grant Thomas.
We thought we were in for a pretty cold, old, boring Saturday night as he goes again. He's got Barry Hall. Stevie Milne has poked the pass to Hall.
Will it be Benny Hall who make the trifecta?
There's the siren. They've won just 1 game in the last 15. Hall to win the game for St Kilda from 38 metres out. He's kicked the goal. He's kicked the goal. The Saints have broken the back. Yeah, fine evidence. What a wonderful shot there of Grant Thomas, Stewie Lowe. Nathan Burke is there as well. And Grant, you won't get the smile off his face for some considerable time, and neither you should, because they've been through hell and now they're on their way back.
And we do welcome now Grant Thomas, 72 games as a player for the Saints, 123 games as a coach. He's got the fifth highest winning percentage of any coach in St Kilda's history, and he's coached the third most finals behind only Ross Lyons' 11 and Alan Jeans' 17 finals as coach of the Saints from 2001, the latter stages of 2001 through until 2006. Grant, thank you very much for joining us.
Cheers.
Now, if we go back to that period where you were a caretaker and obviously you were appointed for the start of 2002, your thoughts on Brett Ratton's 6-week tenure? We know a lot's been said since the departure of Alan Richardson. Is 3-3 about right? Is it probably unfair to expect more given he's only had the group for a short period of time, or are you maybe unconvinced that he's the man for the job?
Look, I'm unconvinced only to the point that I haven't had much to do with Rats, and I haven't spoken to him, and I wouldn't have any idea other than any other footy fan. At the moment, I'm a footy fan, and I look on and I see probably a little bit more methodology in the way they're going about their games, firstly, so that's a tick. I see that there's probably more consistent, unconditional effort, which is a tick, so there's definitely an improvement, but I also I'm enthused by the fact St Kilda are saying that it's a very open process that they're going through, and they're going to sort of leave no stone unturned to get the best candidate. And if the best is Rats, well, good luck to him. We can all be confident that he's won a really tough process.
Now, obviously, you went through this process yourself back in the day. Under Blighty, he saw out 15 weeks, then you stepped in after he basically walked into Moorabbin and 5 minutes later walked out in his nice yellow jumper that we remember. What was the process that went through there, finding out that you had the position?
There wasn't really any process. It was, after the surprise exit of Blighty, I was asked to be caretaker coach. That was, for reasons that you'd need to ask the people who made the decision at the time why that was the case. And then they went through a process which was, in all sincerity, somewhat of a facade. But, I was told way before the end of that I'd be coaching the club, I think, at that point in time for the next 3 years. I think the contract was, I can't remember.
If we look back at that period of time, I mean, yes, there was the tumultuous, the wooden spoon under Tim Watson in 2000, and then Malcolm Blight gets the flick midway through 2001. But for all intents and purposes, if we assess that 5-year block, I mean, Nick Rewalt and Justin Kajitsky come to the club. Through the acquisition of Malcolm Blight, we probably get Aaron Hamill and Fraser Garrick and all of these sorts of people. Then you step in as coach, and within 3 years, we play in a preliminary final. So as much as that period of time appears tumultuous, the building blocks, even though Blighty was originally the plan, didn't work out too badly. The club did, I guess, enjoy a rather significant and quick improvement.
Yeah, I think, we had a mandate to provide St Kilda with sustainable success. We defined sustainable success as playing in finals for a decade, and out of that, winning at least one, but 1 to 3 premierships is, and that's how we saw it. And we felt that the club needed to play in finals every year for a decade to earn respect. I didn't think we were respected as an organisation, and to do that, we couldn't do things how we'd always done them. There was, we would have got similar results. So we had to break the nexus. We had to provide some breakthrough performance and do things dramatically different. And that started with readdressing the culture of the place and the environment and the people and getting it right. I think we got it pretty right. I left in 2006, but in 2004, 5 and 6, we were the most winningest club in the competition. No club had won more games than us over that 3-year period. We played in 3 final series in a row for the first time for a long time, and only the second time in the club's history. And then unfortunately we missed the following year, Rossi's first year, when it took the train went off the tracks for a while. But then, to his credit and the club's and players' credit, they got the train back on the track and came damn close to delivering a couple of premierships. So the model couldn't have been too wrong.
Tom, we've heard in recent days, and for a long time actually, a lot of the former players at the club under you, Rui, BJ and Dal and a few of those guys talk about the culture, as you alluded to, changing the culture and creating a culture of success and sustainability within the club. How do you go about doing that when you walk into a club that's full of either veterans, average veterans and young kids who might have elite talent, but how do you go about changing the culture at a club like St Kilda?
Well, you come up with an agreed set of behaviours first and values that you live and die by and you're accountable to in everything you do. You eradicate the people that aren't interested in abiding by those agreed values, and you ensure that the playing group have a set of goals that's in alliance with the club, and if that usually amounts to success, and if that success is defined by playing finals and giving yourself a chance to win a premiership, well, and everyone's in agreement with that, we'll then say, well, okay, well, that's fine, guys. Happy if that's what you want, we will manage you and coach you and drive you towards that, but you need to understand the ramifications. And the ramifications of that is that you're going to need to do this, 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 and this. And if they say, oh, well, the first three are okay, but the next two we're not 100% confident, well, we say, well, okay, you've got to do one or two things. You've either got to change your attitude towards what you need to do, or you've got to reduce your standards of success. Now, of course, they always say, well, we want to keep the success. Well, okay, you've got to change your standards and you've got to accept the whole 5 or 6 things we've got to do, not just 3. And once you have agreement to that, it's pretty simple. Guys, you asked for it, I'm delivering it, or we're delivering it, and we're managing you towards it. And it's all encompassing, and it starts with getting the right people involved everywhere you look, left, right, in front, above, beyond, below. Everyone is the right type of person. You then got to change your environment. You've got to make sure that it is the right environment to live in and to work in. And then you've got to drive the right culture, and the culture of expectation, the culture of success. You've got to have an environment where players can't wait to get to the club. If you can't wait to get to work, you work better, and that's a fact. We also wanted to accelerate maturity and try and show players how vulnerable they are, but also how much they need to learn. And by that we started, and St Kilda has been credited with starting the AFL community camps, and we go to places for 2 or 3 weeks and immerse ourselves in those communities. I remember lining up at Spencer Street Station with 60 people, 40 players and 20 staff, all with a push bike and a backpack. And we went to Warrnambool for 2 weeks, and we immersed ourselves in hospitals, in prisons, in schools, and trained 3 times a day, and we did all that sort of stuff. That was part of it. The next step of that was to do high-performance altitude training camps in South Africa. The next step to that was to go to London and meet some of the greatest athletes the world's ever produced and train with them for 2 weeks to show them how little you are in Melbourne, Australia, as a sports hero as against the world. And then we took everyone to China and showed them just what it's like to live around a country that's got 1.2 billion people and those sorts of things. So it was all about education and training and leadership and all those fantastic things added up to change the culture of the organisation. And
as the head coach, how much input would you have had, this time of year, not playing finals, obviously silly season has started in regards to trades and draft and all that sort of stuff. Do you then give a list of those characteristics or those character traits to your recruiting department and say, these are the types of people we want in a club? Or how much input do you have in the type of player that the recruiters would have been looking at?
I just want the best player. I mean, I don't care what background they've got. I don't care what they look like. I have a very strong belief and confidence in a long, experienced career of management and everything else to believe that if you build the right environment and you have the right culture and you get the right people, you throw anyone into that, you can help them to be successful and change their habits and change. So I don't say, listen, I only want public school boys, or I only want people who haven't been in trouble, who haven't been in trouble with the law. I don't love that perspective. I just said to Bevo, you pick the best player, Bevo. That's the most important thing. We get them in this environment, everyone will end up pretty good.
I guess a two-part one from me. In regards to, you spoke a little bit about respect from the outside. How much of it is that, and how much of it is, I guess, how you view yourself? I mean, I talk about that elusive premiership, and in the last, or in that period from, 2001 to 2010, St Kilda did a hell of a lot right, put a hell of a lot of building blocks in place, but that was the one thing that didn't land, and it seems that was the one thing that probably held the club back from maybe breaking through all of those barriers, that all it would have taken was to win one flag to effectively complete that entire journey. Is it as simplistic as that in the eyes of the footballing public, that's the true way that you finally close that chapter?
Oh, pretty much. I mean, that's one way to look at it, and that's one vindication for what you're doing. But unless you've got very strong leaders and are able to drive through that continual performance, you'll hiccup and you'll falter at the next hurdle. And, firstly, the club, not the club, but let's say individuals, got rid of me, and then individuals got rid of Ross Lyon. I don't think it was a club. There's not St Kilda. It's people that are in charge at a point in time. And I think I had pretty strong skills and management to ensure that we were consistent, and I think I've proven that. I'm damn sure Rossi Lyon had the same. He's proven that. But then all of a sudden, you don't get to have the right leadership right from the top, whether it be board, executive and coaching, and you start to falter and you start to make knee-jerk decisions and you start to go away from your core principles and everything else, and instead of playing finals, you end up doing a whole host of other things, and pretty much we've been wallowing around since.
Now, you're known for doing a few different things while in your coaching time. It kind of almost changed the way that coaches worked with the media and other areas outside the club itself. You're basically the first to bring in the media to the coaching box on game day. Was the inspiration behind that trying to bring the club and media together, or give people a more look at the inside of what happens on game day, or what was the inspiration in that?
Oh, the inspiration was pretty much just to show the media that footy's not as sophisticated as you think it is, and hopefully to show the fans that, hey, listen, you guys treat everyone within footy like gods, but football is quite unsophisticated and a very long way behind business. But that was part of the reason. The other part of it was, to ensure that we could build, the right relationships with the media, because for whatever reason they didn't have a strong liking to me. I think they probably had a big party when I got the sack, and that's okay. But so part of it was to say, well, they'd ring up and ask some questions. I think it might be Mark Robinson or whatever, and they'd talk about things. And I'd say, well, listen, if you don't believe me, come in the box and have a listen. Oh, I'd love to. And next thing I say, well, I'm not stopping you. When do you want to come? Come along, have a look. Shut up, but just listen. And they come in and they give feedback and they tell us what they think, and they still talk about it to this day. But it's a lot of myths in footy, and you see a lot of camera shots of the coach's box, but if you had the opportunity to actually see what happens in there, I think a lot of people would be very, very surprised about the lack of sophistication.
The final one from me, and I guess it's a two-parter. I think part of what we see from big clubs that have a bit of clout is their, I guess, relationship with the AFL, where it's a case of if they want something from the AFL, they'll make that very clear and they'll stand their ground. And that was one of the things I most admired about you when you were coaching St Kilda, was that you would stand toe-to-toe with the AFL on issues that mattered to the football club. And as a result, we know your relationship with Andrew Demetrio wasn't always the best, but it was always from the best interest of St Kilda. How important was that for for you to be able to just stand there and say, no, this is what we want to stand for St Kilda? And just to tack a little bit onto the end, because I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer it, I listened to the Sacked podcast where you mentioned the Whispers in the Sky game, and you spoke about how a staff member rang you the following morning who'd been on the flight and said, you wouldn't believe what some of these guys are saying. And I know on that podcast they weren't able to dig a little bit deeper. Just out of curiosity, can you shed some light on what some of those things actually were in terms of what was being said on that flight?
Well, first things first, I thought it was critical that we stood up to the AFL. I mean, they treated us with contempt and they treated us like a bad cousin. And the unfortunate thing about it is when I would stand up to the AFL, I'd look around over each shoulder for the support of our people. And most of them would sort of run for the hills. So I was left standing there on my own to fight the battles, which is okay. I'm a big boy, I can do that. But being used as a doormat for too long, and it was time we stood up and demanded respect, and not just through our performances, but we weren't to really stand there and take any ridicule from anyone. And I thought it was a very important part of our progress, and I think our players deserved it. Our fans 100% deserved it, and I don't think they've had much of it in the past. In relation to that incident, I think, it's been pretty well documented for a long period of time. I mean, there was an article on it. Mark Parker was interviewed. You can research all that. I mean, there's no secrets there.
Yeah, it was, we know the old, now I know what a victory feels like, but yeah, that was very interesting, and I think all of us who watched it were in agreement. Nick, you had one?
Yeah, last one from me, Tomo. Obviously, you alluded to earlier about your experience with business and in business, kind of helping shape how you moulded the culture at the club. You obviously spent time with some pretty illustrious characters in terms of footy. You played under some pretty impressive people at the club, guys like Jezza and the like. You're at North with Dennis Pagan. What people might not remember is your time as an assistant coach under Stan Alves. What can you tell us about Stan and his time at the club?
Look, I wasn't there for that long. In fact, I wasn't anywhere for very long anywhere, I suppose. But, look, Dan just rang me up and said, "Listen, you've won 4 premierships in a row at Warrnambool, and you've got a lot of experience, and blah blah blah." And
did you have one? Or do you want to?
Yeah. This is my first stint at coaching. I'd like someone I can trust and believe in to call it as they see it. I know you speak your mind, and I'd like you to, do some, mentoring to me and provide some advice. And I said, well, that's okay. I'd love to do it. I'd love to help, especially if you're prepared to sort of receive it in the manner it's meant, but I won't pull any punches. And that went okay for a period of time. And then, we sat down after about 14 weeks or 15 weeks, and Stan asked me a couple of questions, which I gave him a couple of honest answers to, and he didn't like it, and so he asked me to leave, and I said, fine, that's fine, so I left. That's simple.
Now, as you said there,
I think he might have adjusted some of the things I was referring to. Well, I know he did. And he went on to, coach for a few more years and do pretty well.
As you said there, you weren't at places for very long there, which ended up giving you a nickname by Patrick Smith. So the same question you can answer is, what is your favourite breakfast cereal?
Bacon and eggs.
Oh. No. I thought I was going to go with cornflakes there, but how did that relationship go along with Patrick?
Well, Patrick Smith is the brother of brother Paul Smith, who was my headmaster at St Bede's College, which I never found this out for a while, but our one of my good mates from school, who became Father Michael Sierakowski, who became a parish priest in Bentley for a long time, I asked him to come along and be our priest within the club, just for players to go and talk when they couldn't talk to anyone else. And we asked St Kilda, so we're saints, so it was good to have priest there with him, guy Father Michael. And he told me one day, why are you having so many problems with Patrick Smith? And I said, no. And he said, well, his brother's brother Paul Smith. I said, you're kidding me. Because I used to torment brother Paul a fair bit, and I think Patrick might have been trying to get me back. So I think it was that simple, to be frank.
Well, Grant, watching the Saints under you was a lot of fun, and I think you deserve a lot of credit for helping to change the club so significantly at the time. We still chased that elusive flag, but you and Ross Lyon and plenty of others have given it a bloody good crack, and I'm sure we'll all have a smile on our face when it comes. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Love the Saints. Go Saints.
Grant Thomas there. We'll jump now into our issues of the week.
The big issues.
St Kilda star Jake Carlisle, well, you can officially put him on the trade table. Now, his manager, Anthony McConville, will meet with St Kilda, with their head of footy, Simon Lethlean, and their list manager, James Gallagher, this week to discuss his future. Now, both parties will say that Jake Carlisle is committed to St Kilda and likely to be St Kilda next year. That is true if they can't find another suitor. And the facts are, there's a real chance Jake Carlisle's going to be playing at another club next year.
And that was Sam McClure with the news that a couple of Saints are on the trade table. There's been a lot of talk around Jake Carlisle activating the clause in his contract, which he's successfully done, meaning that he is available and I guess likely to be retained by St Kilda in 2020, but Sam McClure suggesting he's on the trade table. And a bit of a favourite son in Josh Bruce has had a good year, potentially getting shopped around as well. There's 1,000 pieces of news we could go through here before we get to some of your questions as well. But Brad Hill, we anticipate will nominate St Kilda, the $900,000 deal. It's hard to see that not happening. Carl Amon has suggested that he'll leave, or wants to leave Port Adelaide again, as he did 12 months ago. He's been linked to both St Kilda and Melbourne, so it's one or the other. Paddy Ryder been linked to St Kilda and Essendon, I think his former club, the other two, and we keep getting thrown around with the likes of Adam Tomlinson, Brad Crouch. You're obviously not going to land all of these players, but the latest one has been Jake Kelly, which has been doing the rounds, and particularly if you lost Jake Carlisle. But what do we make of all of that? We've been linked with a lot of players, but we'll start off, H, the prospect of Carlisle and Bruce. Would you or wouldn't you?
Well, I was going to start with saying that with all the players linked to us this year, we could actually make a pretty good team. But yeah, they're sort of players that, unless we get something better back, I would not be getting rid of anytime soon. They're not players that I want to get rid of for picks.
I think they're worth more to us than they are to any other club in terms of what they'd give up.
Yeah, unless we get a player that we look at going, they're going to fit in so much better, then I wouldn't trade him.
The only thing I'd say on Bruce, and I love Bruce and he loves the club, and I think he's one of those heart and soul players you hang on to. If and it's all a big if St Kilda got another ruckman, even though it would only be short term, but let's say they got Ryder and Marshall played forward ruck, and then Max King came through, who misses out? So if you're playing another ruckman forward and you're playing King forward, it probably comes down to Membry or Bruce, and Membry would probably win that battle. As good as Bruce is, and I love him, but that would be the only reasoning, I would think.
That's probably fair, and I think it's probably a good problem to have.
Yeah.
But I think often, and a lot of people, we've seen it during the week, about Max King and him basically having a walk-up spot in the goal square, and I'm not sure it's that simple. We know how long it takes big guys to develop. We know he's been out for a very long time between the two seasons. We don't know what his health and his fitness is going to be like, and I'm not sure we can guarantee on having him in the goal square for 22 weeks, 22 games, all season. And it would be nice to have that sort of flexibility where if he's not able to get the ball, if he's not 100% that he can go back to the twos, or he can have a week off and can bring someone like Josh Bruce or Tim Membry back into the team. It would have to be something pretty compelling for me to want to lose Josh Bruce, I think.
Yeah, and I can see him being a player who's actually probably could be utilised in other positions as well.
Oh, yeah.
He's a bit of a swingman, I reckon, if we really needed to bring someone down the back line. I mean, he played at GWS in the back line. He's got experience all over the field, really. I mean,
There's a bit of Hunter and Hansen and those sort of guys who can play a bit of centre half forward, centre half back, a bit on the wing.
You can see him spreading down the wing. Yeah. He's got a pretty good game behind him wherever he really plays.
He had a good year, and one thing he got back was his timing. He was running under the footy a bit for a while, but this year he's certainly well and truly got that back. The Bulldogs have been the team he's been linked to, and Jake Carlisle, who knows, but Zach Jones, I'm not a huge rap for Zach. I mean, he's been a competent player, but he strikes me as the type of guy that relies on his speed, runs too fast, and then tries to kick the footy, usually whilst running flat out, and his disposal efficiency wouldn't be great, and I'm not sure we need somebody with poor disposal efficiency.
If we got him for nothing, maybe.
Yeah.
Is he a free agent?
I'm not sure he's a free agent. I think he might be out of contract. I
Right.
think he's a free agent.
Which means we'd still have to trade unless it was a delisted free agent.
So basically, if we're
Sorry,
going,
a delisted pre-season draft.
if we're going for a very late pick or something, sure,
Yeah,
but
possibly.
I wouldn't be spending too much.
I kind of see him as the same category of player as Nick Hind, but I think Hind is a better field kick
Yeah.
than Jones. And, I wouldn't mind seeing Hind play a bit off halfback in the same way, a bit of dash down the wing and off halfback. But back to Carlisle, I've seen a few things today since that report came out yesterday about Jake Carlisle on the trade table, and a few comments around the topic of we need to remove his salary from the books and we need the money for guys like Brad Hill or Tomlinson. And I don't think that's correct. I think if that was an issue, then we could have quite easily held him out of the last couple of weeks and not triggered that extension.
Correct.
So if there's a reason that we want to trade him out, then it's something that's not contract related. It might be football related. It might be personality related. It could be something that he wants. We don't know what that story is. We don't know if it's crap, to be honest.
It could be media rubbish.
It could be media rubbish. It could be something leaked out of the club meant to put a bit of a rocket up him for the preseason. I can't see it being true that we've got him on the table, because I don't see why we would have triggered that extension.
He's an interesting.
If that was the move.
He's an interesting player, Jake, in that he's a very good player and he does a lot of things really well, but you can usually rely on him to do one thing catastrophically bad in a game, and he does make you nervous a little bit. Like, you expect him to either, I think there was one against the Bulldogs where he ran, he was 40 metres away from two Bulldogs players, ran all the way up to where they were and had his kick smothered.
Yeah,
I'm like, how did you misjudge that when you had so much space behind the contest? But anyway, just little things like that. But I think the good well and truly outweighs the bad. And
absolutely, and I think getting a full preseason, getting him fit and healthy, makes a big difference. It was pretty clear that he wasn't 100%, even though he's obviously been cleared fit, but he wasn't 100% in terms of match fitness. It was clearly a step slower than he is at his peak. Wasn't able to get the power into his legs, and that's something that's fairly common with back injuries and chronic back injuries, that you can't do a lot of that leg stuff. And for a guy his size, you really need to be able to push off the ground and get to a contest. And he wasn't able to do that in the back half of this year. And I think getting him back on track and have a full preseason, getting him fit and 100% would make a massive difference, because he's a really good player. And I think we missed him dearly.
Yeah, initially they were putting him out to get him ready for the preseason, but he recovered so well early that, he might have recovered to about 90% or so, but it was very quick, and they thought, well, we can get him back in and get him playing and sorting out our back line and, give him a go.
I think Carl Amon would be good if we could land him. I think his family was lifelong St Kilda supporters. I'm pretty sure, because he grew up with a health issue that I can't place at the moment, but I remember he was a mascot for St Kilda when he was about 9 or 10. He went out on the ground. I think his favourite player was Aaron Hamill or something like that, and ran out on the ground with the Saints. So there's certainly a strong connection there for Carl, and good player, very creative player, does a lot of his damage forward to centre, good user of the ball. So he'd be a nice one. And
had his best year for Port as well.
For sure. And Brad Hill's clearly exactly what we need with that outside run. He's one of best and fairest, and his numbers rank him in the top 3 wingmen in the AFL.
And I think that deal must be pretty close to being done.
I'd say so.
Normally at this time of year where there's smoke, there's fire, and often we see stuff that comes out this early comes to fruition. And it's in all the media reports, it's every journo believes it's going to happen.
And so does every club.
Every club, it seems. It sounds like a lot of the Victorian clubs that were interested have ended up not making an offer or pulling out
off.
And when asked about it, they've said he's going to St Kilda.
Yeah, where there's smoke, there's fire, and I think it's as good as done as.
It's just how we got pick 5, which I think will end up being pick 6, because the AFL will bow to the Gold Coast wishes and give them a priority selection, which is absurd. I wonder whether, because the Gold Coast traded pick 2 for Lockie Weller, now if they're given a priority pick, the AFL will make them trade it. I get that feeling. Now, they're unlikely to land a big fish, because a big fish won't accept a trade there. There aren't too many out-of-contract Queenslanders that I can think of.
Armo.
Well, that's right. But I wonder whether a package deal of modest, when I say modest, of good players could potentially get the job done if there was a volume of them.
Yeah, I think it's something that I mentioned on Twitter today. I don't remember who it was to, one of the journos, but I think it's going to have to still be a pretty good offer. I don't think a club in this day and age is going to be able to get away with a package of kind of average veterans and lowly draft picks.
Josh Bruce, Jake Carlisle, Blake Acres for pick 2 and Ben King.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure Gold Coast are ready to give up Ben King and pick 2.
No, but
not
pick
sure
2 is
we're
not
ready.
actually theirs in the first place.
True,
But they'd
I
probably
think-
have that same pause that we just did, though.
Yeah, possibly. But I think something along the lines for us, you'd look at Josh Bruce, Jack Nunes potentially, someone who might want a fresh start and really play for midfield minutes at Gold Coast, and potentially pick in the 30s. Could be a start. That's not going to do it on its own, but I think that would be a start. And then you start looking at guys like Jake Carlisle and some others that might be worth looking at. But there's definitely some questions to be asked about what happens with that pick 2.
Yep, and that might be a question we can ask. A few of these have been asked off our socials. So Daniel Byrne says thoughts on Bruce and Carlisle getting traded. Reece Livermore asked about the Bruce trade of the Bulldogs and what we might get back. Depends where we'd see. Yeah,
Not the sort of player, as I said, I'd like to trade for a pick or something.
No,
but,
that's right.
I mean,
the Bulldogs, they've got some good young kids, but are they going to
they're
give
not
them
going
up?
to give up
No.
in wars, and they're not going to give up.
No, that's right. We're not going to get
I have heard a rumour that, and I can't kind of substantiate it in any way, but I have heard a rumour that the St Kilda recruiting team is doing something with the Bulldogs, and that potentially it's something that a player or someone that the Bulldogs wouldn't want to lose, or the Bulldogs fans wouldn't want to lose. But I don't have any more detail. That's all I've heard, and unfortunately, I can't give any more context to that. But that's just something that I've heard around the traps over the last couple of weeks.
Or tune into our next couple of podcasts, and you might get a little bit more out of Nick on that one going forward. Christian Bessel was asking about Carl Amon and Zach Jones. Alex Emery asking if we started the podcast so we could fanboy over retired heroes, possibly.
It's a funny story there. Alex actually used to be a boss of mine, so
right.
I know his humour, and yes, as you can see, he's given us a little wink for that. So,
and both Nicky and Daniel and a couple of others have asked the question that we did discuss a bit earlier about whether we're still bullish about Brett Ratton. I think we're still on that train at the moment. And Paddy Ryder, probably the other one worth mentioning, Rob Shearer and John Zulian at St John 56 on Twitter asking that question. So Paddy Ryder will be 32, I think, at the start of next year. Still got some tricks, but he obviously likes to be the main man. At Port Adelaide, he's got Lysette and Laddams who's coming through. I would argue that Marshall at this stage has gone past Ryder, but whether we could utilise both of them in the same team or whether they're the same player, but it does look a possibility.
his experience, I think, might be something that would help Rowan. Just that the years he's got behind him, coming in, just tell him the little tips and tricks that Rowan probably doesn't know as a youngster, because he he's kind of new with the ruck game, really. He comes in, gives him these little knowledge bits, goes out in the field, helps him. He sits in the pocket while Rowan's rucking. Switch over, let Rowan have a rest in the forward line. Watch what he does. It could be very, very useful for us.
He's a good player. He's lost a step over the last year or two. He does still have some tricks. He's still a very good player, and he could help us in terms of, growing Marshall's ability as a ruckman and as a field ruckman. I'm not sure that he'd play every game. I think it might be one of those things where he plays, 12 to 16 games a year, depending on matchups and some of those clubs that have really strong ruck departments that like to run around with 2 mobile ruckmen. Those type of games where Marshall will need a spell occasionally, and will need another big body to help him. They are very similar players. I think, like you said, Marshall's probably gone ahead of him in terms of his work around the ground, and word out of the club is that they think that he's a better forward than a ruckman. So that's a pretty scary proposition for a guy that can rest up forward and potentially clunk a few and kick a couple. But I think anyone we bring in would have to settle for being the second fiddle. Marshall's shown enough to be the undisputed number one ruckman, I think, at this stage.
Yeah, you just got to look back to the the tap that he gave to Robbie Gray against us last year to sort of think about what he can do.
So give you nightmares, that tap.
Yep.
That's brutal. That is brutal, that's for sure. Just a couple of things before we finish up as well. Sandringham completed their season with a win. It's been a while, but a 53-point win over the Bull Ants. The other Northern Blues. They were the Northern Bull Ants. Dara Joyce actually played forward and kicked 3. Ed Phillips had 27 possessions, so that was a good finish. And our Southern Saints, or the St Kilda's VFL, soon to be AFLW side, has been flying along. We'll hopefully jump inside that
minor premiers.
Yeah, we'll jump inside that camp hopefully in the coming weeks and celebrate what we hope will be a nice finish to the VFL. They win a flag and then obviously launch their AFL season next year as one of the pioneers. We probably should have had a foundation team in the AFLW, but good that we've got one now. And
quietly building a really solid list too.
For sure, yeah, they're going to be in the mix, you'd think, first up. So hopefully can get around the girls for a bit of success. And also, if you want to check out some of our stuff on socials as well, and trade targets, etc., and some of the trade target questions that you might have for us, and list management type stuff, and who's where, we'll have a bit of an assessment next week as to who's on the table, who could stay, who could go. Jump on the emails, unplugged@gmail.com, facebook.com/unplugged, @unplugged on Twitter, Unplugged Podcast on Instagram. Make sure you review and subscribe all of our channels, Spotify and Pitcher and iTunes and all of that as well. Just search for #Unplugged and you'll be able to find all of that. Boys, thank you for stopping by. 9-13, so double the win tally from last year, but we'll pull apart what it all means in the off-season.
Disappointing season, but not disastrous.
No, they had a crack.
Yep. Statistically, twice as good as last year, so we're going to go up from there.
Yep, and guys like Marshall and Clark, etc., certainly look very, very lively. Grant Thomas was our special guest. His finest moment as coach was the 2005 qualifying final victory over the Adelaide Crows. We'll finish with a little bit of that.
He's been good, Montagna. Now Wilt, who has a big left foot kick. Revolt, one out. Well done, though, by Henschel. Milne dangerous. He should nail this. And the Saints are in front. The mark's taken by Ferguson. And after a torrid first quarter, that was a good sign from Ferguson. Harvey now. He might kick his second goal. He's done everything in this quarter. And he's done a bit more now. Got it back again. Inside 50. Shanks the kick. Wilt pounces. And the Papua New Guinea kicks it into the goal square. And he's nailed the goal. His first in league football. And what a time to score. To Fisher again out wide. Milne. Picked up by Hart. Beautifully read Del Santo. Got it to Milne. Back to Del Santo. Into the pocket. Harvey. He's done it all tonight. Any score will put them in front. It's a 6-pointer. Long kick. Massey to Edwards. Stood up in the tackle. Couldn't find Dougherty. It's over. The Saints are through to the preliminary final. What a performance at AAMI Stadium. When the Saints go marching in. When the Saints go marching in. Now I want to be with St Kilda. When the Saints go marching in.
This is Unplugged, talking all things red, white and black.